Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. In this episode, we're going to be talking a couple of stories about tariffs of products coming out of China and tariffs in general, so that those of you who may not understand how and why they are important. We're going to talk about a massive bust in Saskatchewan, a historic record-setting, and we're going to talk about how Elon Musk has championed freedom of speech and done us all an enormous favor by filing a antitrust lawsuit against GARM. All that's coming up, but before we get into it, I would encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your friends. I have an open GoFundMe just so I can get a couple of things that I need to improve equipment-wise, and I have open memberships for those of you that wish to support the channel that way. So we'll start with tariffs, and right out of the gate, I'll just let you know that a tariff is nothing, it's just a fancy word for a tax. However, it's not taxed on the individual people. It's taxed on the product coming across the border, depending on A, what product it is, or B, where it's coming from. In the case of Chinese aluminum, it's obviously aluminum coming from China, which, because of their environmental practices and because of their labor standards, can be manufactured at a considerable discount, which makes Canadian-made aluminum much more expensive. So then the Chinese aluminum floods the market and puts Canadian workers out of a job. We know that it doesn't improve the environmental impact that's happening in Asia. Further, products are then made with this aluminum and then sold to the United States at a discount. So if I was making my stuff with wholly Canadian product and you were making your stuff with wholly imported product, and it was the exact same item, you could now sell your product internationally out of Canada for less than I can sell it because of the way where I purchased my material, because I might have bought all Canadian and the individual that I'm dealing with has done it all China, even though it might be the exact same product. This is why I support tariffs. And this is not new. I mean, we have trees running out our wazoo in Canada, but we can't sell any of it to the United States because they put an enormous tariff on Canadian lumber. This is primarily to do with the fact that our system is such that the Canadian government will subsidize some lumber manufacturers, which results in the government in the United States saying, no, then that's what they call dumping, because you get it so cheap and then you just throw it in, and now you're going to lower the price of the lumber in my market, which is putting my people out of jobs and which is putting my people out of economy. And I think that it's beholden of us to start to focus on how to create and generate an economy. We need to stop importing anything from other places when we have it already here, and we need to start building it. Even if it costs more, the banks are going to have to squeeze one out, because it will then ultimately improve the overall state of this country. We have to quadruple the housing supply so that the bottom falls right out and we can get a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,000 a month included, everything included. And we have to start to manufacture all of our products in Canada, even if it means being more strict with the environmental impact and it costs us an extra $1 per item. It's better for the country. It's better for everyone in the country, and it's better for the world at large. And if the Liberal government is always running around talking about how we're doing all of these things for the world at large, then should they not be worried about the world at large on everything? Now, I know you and I both know that the Liberals are talking a whole bunch of talk, but it doesn't mean that those of us that want to fix things shouldn't be worried about doing it right this time, shouldn't be concerned about how we can solve many of these issues with just looking after keeping all of this product inside of our own borders. So the aluminum and steel is, they get a lot of extra costs in Canada, just like everything that Justin Trudeau does. They get a huge carbon tax, even though they might get some breaks. They have a cold steel plant opening in Quebec. However, the Chinese market doesn't have to worry about any of that. They're still making it like they made it in the 50s. So there's not much to worry about environmentally, and they don't pay their people anything worth paying them. They still kind of treat a lot of their workers like they used to back in the 30s in Canada and in the United States, when it was all company towns, and you got everything off the store, and then your money was. And so they can bring it into this country at a much lower rate. And we have to start looking after our own borders. Now, steel and aluminum are not the only products that we should be worrying about putting tariffs on in China. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of mushrooms. But the article that we're looking at here is from Politics, and it's the Conservative leader wants Canada to match the U.S. tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Of course, this has the far left media in Canada just tingly in their, in their sensitive places, because it touches everything, right? It goes, they can say, oh, he's against electric batteries and he loves America. But let's be straightforward. It's just smart business. The Americans put the tariff on the car because they can flood the market with cheap product. In fact, what's really bad about a lot of the Chinese stuff is they get the metals and the materials they need from Canada, manufacture it at a fraction of the cost, and then sell it to the United States at full bore. So they make it a lot of money. And why would we allow them to make all of the money when we ourselves could be making the money? Is it not better to just manufacture the batteries in Canada? And I know that all of these companies running from the hills. And the simple fix for that is to just take away their mining rights, right? And those companies can either fold the enterprises that they were going to take in Canada, or they can transfer title to somebody else. I mean, there's ways to correct that. However, what we can do as Canadians is to take control of that. We can put only Canadian workers in there. We can put only Canadian product in there, and then we can sell it to the United States, or we can sell it to Ford, who they can just drive it across the border and sell it into the trucks or into the cars. Now, we all know that there's not much market for batteries in Canada between the distances and the infrastructure and the temperature. However, there's a market for them somewhere. So if we're making them, it's better to be putting tariffs on Chinese ones that are coming in and making them ourselves. And that just goes with what I was just saying. So when I hear Pierre Poilievre say that, what I hear is him thinking about the economy of the country, about building a future for this country. And you want to talk about Canada. If you want to talk about a future, if you want to tell yourself that you came to this country to get something started, then let's do it. Let's get something started. But in the end, we have to begin it here. And as we're so already currently aware of what not to do when it comes to dumping, when it comes to putting things in the water, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it will in fact cost a little bit more extra to manufacture the product. But that doesn't mean that we can't in fact create as good or better and still live the same standard of living. The key for our country to live better is we have to stop paying nearly 50% of our income to taxes, and we have to stop paying so much for housing. It's easy for a person to say, well, I have a part-time job if they only have to pay $1,000 a month to rent an entire house, or, maybe not a part-time job, but a job at minimum wage. They don't have to necessarily work for the high wage if they can get a decent living for a decent wage, like they did in the 50s and 60s and 70s, up until the point when everybody decided they were going to mess around and try to get all of the money up to the top. I don't know why people go ahead and follow greed instead of following what's right. I can't explain it. I tried to think about it, and I'm sure all of the reasons that I say will just sound vindictive or something like that. What I do know is that where I'm coming from is a position where we as Canadians have to start looking after Canada. Okay, so now we'll talk about free speech a little bit. And I saw the poll. I know that a lot of you want to talk about it, and I will get to it. And as part of that, I'm starting with this little story of an article. Global Alliance for Responsible Media is discontinuing after Elon Musk's X filed an antitrust lawsuit against it. Now, go back to the beginning. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media, they've shortened that to the word GARM. And Elon Musk filed an antitrust lawsuit, which is to say that people are not following the rules in business or in commerce of some types, and therefore it's not fair, it's not right, and it goes against the very principles, the bedrock of what a free and open market stands for. So I'll just come down here a little bit because there was another one, right? The advertising trade group, the World Federation of Advertisers, which this article will refer to as the WFA, told its members on Thursday that it was discontinuing activities for its Global Alliance for Responsible Media initiative following an antitrust lawsuit filed by Elon Musk's X against the company earlier this week. Insiders Stephen Loke, the CEO of WFA, wrote in an email to members seen by Business Insider that the decision was not made lightly, but GARM is a not-for-profit organization with limited resources. Of course, it is not it might be a not-for-profit, but it's got all kinds of resources. the idea was they would all get together and they would decide who would be put on this list of so-called ethical advertisers and ethical manufacturers, which of course is just the same thing that they're trying to do with countries that are like on the lists for who you can do business with. Now, what went wrong for them is that Elon Musk at the time, right? So this would mean like, oh, they're telling people like they got some big businesses on here, right? They got Unilever. They have, okay, look, it says down here, the news came just 2 days after X filed an antitrust suit in Texas, which alleged that GARM's members illegally colluded to collectively withhold billions of dollars in advertising revenue from Twitter, now known as X. GARM members include Unilever, Mars, CVS, and Orsted. They were also named as defendants. Now, I can't tell you off the top of my head who Orsted is, but I can tell you the rest. Unilever is like one of the largest chemical companies on earth. They make, I'm sure if you go into your medicine cabinet, they make your toothpaste, they make your underarm deodorant, they make your dish soap, they make all kinds of stuff, and they own other products as well. So to say that they're going to be nonprofit, maybe, but certainly they are not going to be limited resources. I mean, this is a massive outfit. Mars chocolate. I mean, think about it. CVS is a pharmacy down in this. Well, as far as I know, down in the States. Only it might be some in Canada I'm not aware of. So they were going to gang up on X and say, we're not giving our trade dollars to this platform because we don't want you to have any money. We want you to go broke. They're really angry because they don't like the fact that you can go on X and not get arrested for saying your opinion. That makes them crazy. I think about the motivation that they have, right? Think about that. They don't want you to, they don't care that, I mean, it's not like you can go on the platform and start calling people names or anything like that, but you can say what your opinion is. You can follow the true spirit of free speech on X. And these companies did not want that. Why? What kind of a person wakes up in the morning and says, what I want to do is make sure that nobody can ever criticize me ever again on earth? That seems a bit of a character flaw right there. I think that the character flaw is not for the person who criticizes you, but the character flaw is the person who cannot hear it. The person who says to themselves that they are so perfect, they are above criticism, and anybody who tells them that there's something wrong with them, anybody who criticizes them has somehow got a flaw, somehow needs to be punished, somehow needs to be harmed. That sounds to me like some of the weakest personalities on earth. I mean, remember, freedom of speech doesn't cover lies. You're not allowed to lie. And it doesn't cover threats. But it does cover being able to say the true spirit of freedom of speech is this. And here it is. Listen, it is the ability to speak truth to power. That is the whole juxtaposition of, that's the crux of it. It's the ability to speak truth to power. Now, you can't necessarily threaten power. You can't climb on power's roof and threaten their wife, like in the case of Stephen Guilbeault. But you can say, hey, I don't agree with you, and I want something done about this. And many of these companies were boycotting going on X. And many of the companies that, this is the thing, many of the companies that wanted to go on X were being held back by GARM, saying if you go on there, you're out, and we're going to pull back all of our money from some of the biggest companies on earth, which is how it's not fair, right? It goes against the principles of a free market. And so as a result, they've liquidated the entire thing, and who knows what they'll do secretly. But I can tell you that part of the reason that they will liquidate it is because they are being turned, right? They're turning away from this woke ideology because they know they can see the bottom line, and they know there's no money in it, and they see the numbers on X. They see the amount of traffic that Elon Musk's X is receiving. And they're like, we need to get in front of those eyeballs. We need to have toothpaste ads running every second, page or whatever it is. Shampoo, like there's a lot of product in the names that are, I mean, think about it. It's toiletries and chocolate. You don't want to run on X. So It was, they might say that it was all about the antitrust, but at the same time, the lawsuit might have just given them a good excuse to say, hey, you know what? Let's quietly and secretly move away from the teachings of Davos and just start to get some money again. I can't speak for them, but that's kind of the thing that makes sense in my mind. However, you can leave me your opinion down in the comments. Okay, so I told you there was a record-setting story. Saskatchewan Highway Patrol arrested a man in a record seizure of 8.75 million unstamped cigarettes, the largest tobacco seizure in detachment history. The Saskatchewan Highway Patrol. So this guy was driving up the road with a tractor trailer full of cigarettes. They pull him over and they found out that his bill of lading was not accurate and that he was smuggling cigarettes. Unstamped, of course, goes back to what I was talking about with tariffs. Because in Canada, there's a lot of money put on a package of cigarettes that is pure taxes, which is why so many people buy their cigarettes in other locations. And I can tell you that there's a lot, like, I'm not up to date on what current cigarette prices are, and they will vary from province to province. But here's what I know that you need. Here's what I can make you understand. If you're buying a pack of cigarettes, the wrapper that you have around the little tab that pulls it out and splits them in two, or if it's a 20 pack, you unwrap it and it splits the plastic for you. That changes color from province to province depending on which province is being sold in, and that is designed to let that those products are being taxed under the appropriate system, whether it be Ontario, whether it be Saskatchewan, whether it be whoever. Because in the United States of America, those taxes are considerably, they don't exist. And when you bring them across the border without having those brands put on it, they call that cigarette smuggling, which is avoiding the tariffs, which is unstamped. So that tab is actually clear, it's see-through, and it doesn't have any of the provincial markings on it. And it says duty not paid written along it normally. Now, I suppose they may have changed that since the last time I was involved with cigarettes, but I don't think that they've changed the taxes. I still believe cigarettes are pretty expensive from what I understand. Now, many of you might not, who are vapors, might not know what I mean, but just trust me when I tell you there is at least 50% of a pack of cigarettes that is just taxes that go to the federal and the provincial governments. So this guy is going to be charged with smuggling, right? He brought them across the border and drove them in his truck with a false bill of lading. Now, the driver may not know anything. He could have just pulled up. The truck could have been locked. He put his truck on, the trailer on the truck and drove. What I think is interesting is that there's a market for 8.75 million cigarettes. That's how many people are still smoking non-vapes. And for those of you that are trying to do the math right now, if it's 25 cigarettes a pack, it's roughly 44,000 packages. And that is a considerable amount of money. Somebody is going to be feeling a lot of, money loss on this one. And I would point out one other interesting thing. The truck driver is facing 3 charges related to the transportation, possession, and sale of unstamped tobacco products. He's due in court in Swift Current on August 14th. I wonder if they're holding him or did they give him bail? Did they let him go right from the police station? Or is all of a sudden this crime meaning that you got to wait for bail? I mean, he's a truck driver. He could get in his truck and just drive away. You never see him again. So I wonder if this is you can steal and smash windows and all that stuff and we'll let you out the same day. But you try to avoid paying taxes and it's Al Capone all over again. All right. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you next time.